Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Schenectady City Council Committee meeting for Monday, June 21st, 2021 to order. And we'll go straight into finance. Mr. Palamani.
Call to order the Finance Committee. The first item on the agenda is the authorization to provide a $100,000 CDBG forgivable loan to the Land Reutilization Corporation with Ms. Dio and Mr. Gardner.
Good evening. So this request is in relation to 110 Prospect Street. This is a property that the land bank currently owns. It's adjacent to two demolition sites and across the street from the seat build that we did in conjunction with the land bank. So essentially, we are looking to rehab this property in coordination with the land bank and also through the Affirmative Action Office Section 3 training program. So it's an opportunity to partner and utilize graduates of the training program for the rehabilitation of this blighted land bank owned property. So Ron, are you on the call? Do you want to give any further information on this? Ron is in my office. So
Mr. Chairman, can I comment on this?
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Diaz has outlined the scenario there. I think it's a good project. What I don't think comes out here is we're looking to put up the $100,000. It's my understanding that in this project, we may not recover the full 100,000 and probably won't in partnership with the land bank. But in the final sale price, we will then get a percentage of that money back. And it's not, you don't get that from the scenario that's outlined here, but in the final sale, when this is done, that we'll get some of this money back that will again be able to be then reprogrammed for either similar uses or other CDB eligible funding opportunities.
Are there any questions?
I move this.
Yes. Oh, I do have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mayor, my question for you is, you said that we would get some of the money back. Would we have you said a percentage. Would you know about what that percentage would be?
Well, I'd hope 100%. The reality is some of the expenses are probably going to be above that. Mm-hmm. So I'd say hopefully 80%.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted you to have an idea of what we were talking about. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? All right. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It passes. Next is the 2021 budget amendment with Chief Senecal.
Yes. Hello. Good afternoon. So we recently had a IPS 3 position vacated a couple of months ago. In discussion with the mayor and with Human Resources, we decided that it was time to upgrade the position to include some data-driven material. Somebody for the fire department that would actually analyze data, collect the data, chart the data. We've never really had that. They'll be more involved with grant writing. The position actually, what I'm asking for is a reduction for this year It's approximately $600 under what I have budgeted. So it's actually a reduction to the budget. And looking to move this forward to fill his position.
Are there any questions? All right, can I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Call to order public safety. The first item is a discussion or update in regards to City Hall reopening and City Council meeting back in person. A few weeks ago, myself and Ms. Michael and the mayor and staff met with regards to outfitting room 209 so that the council can get back into meeting in person. So Mayor McCarthy, would it be possible to give us an update as to where we are with that room 209 outfitting that for the council?
I'm not sure specifically with the modifications that you were looking for. We're still reviewing the guidance from the state CDC, looking for the building to shift back, whether it's 100% or ramping up right after July 6th, the July 4th weekend, as people come back, that will look to get us back to where we were pre-COVID, and then work with the council to, as you've indicated, Mr. Motivaran, we're not looking to do committee meetings anymore in 110, to do everything in room 209, and that we'll look to accommodate that. And probably the first meeting or two, you just require a little bit of flexibility on everybody as we adapt to what would be some modified seating, the sound system, and the video transmissions and recordings of the meetings.
So Mayor, so are we looking at July 6th as a possible date?
That's the day I'm looking for the building going back, and it's your discretion again for the council meetings.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that update. I'm going to open it to my colleagues. Any comments from my colleagues with regards to us in-person meeting and looking at July 6th?
Mr. President?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
No, Carmel, go ahead.
Well, no, I just want to say that I'm looking forward to getting back. I'd be fully in support of meeting again on July 6th in person. I do want to recommend that we stay with the 5:30 time slot for the meetings moving forward. I think that's worked out for us. I think it will work out for our residents. And I'm very, very much in favor of getting together in person again.
Mr. Motivaran?
Thank you. Please proceed.
So I am also in favor of sticking to the 5:30 timeframe. Certainly will, when we have an actual council meeting, allow more people to speak and it not be as late into the evening. I would also ask if the governor's guidelines have been lifted and we're no longer having to follow the state rules. Could we go back to the actual committee meetings being in 109 and then the council meetings upstairs? Is that something that's off the table completely?
That's at the discretion of the council. That's something I'm going to weigh in on.
I mean, that is open. I mean, we can utilize both rooms. The reason why we were outfitting 201, just to make sure that, was to not to have the staff outfitting room 110 and 209, so that we meet in one room. But if we're going back to pre-COVID, then we can utilize both rooms. Not a problem.
All right, and the other reason I would encourage us to stay to the 5:30, I know the staff is going to have to clean up after each meeting, and I think it would be, save them some time so they're not, into the later hours of the evening. So I would be in favor of maintaining that 5:30 timeframe. Thank you.
Mr. Mudavaren?
Please proceed.
So I'm also in favor of going back to in-person meetings. I'm curious to know how this is going to affect the public, and if there's a limit of how many people can come. You know, those are things I'd like to know, because people have been asking about coming to the meetings. And with regard to the 5:30 timeframe, I think it's extremely convenient for us and certainly works as we are virtual. My concern is, though, that if there are people who have gone back to work and do want to attend the meetings, if they work as far away as Albany, getting off at 5 o'clock and trying to attend a 5:30 meeting may be challenging. So I think even if we don't go back to 7, we may want to consider a time that allows people to attend the meeting. So we're making sure that the residents and people who want to speak on privilege of the floor and have any type of comments where they want to come in before the council have an opportunity to attend the meeting. Because 5:30, while like I said, might be convenient for most of us being right here in Schenectady. But if you work in Albany or any place outside of the city limits, it may be difficult to get to a meeting by 5:30. So I think we should take that into consideration before we nail down and just go directly with all 5:30 meetings. It's a great time, but again, I want to make sure that the residents have the opportunity to come and, do privilege of the floor or anything else they'd like to, or just hear us in person again. So I think we should take that into consideration, but I'm certainly open to and looking forward to going back to the in-person meetings. Thank you.
Mr. President, I believe some of those times are set in the city code. So, we've operated under some level of flexibility here, whether it was an executive order from the governor, some that I issued. But going back to we're changing the times, it may require some more formal action by the city council. And that I intend to submit to you that the hours of operation for the city are 9 to 5, with the exception of during the summer, it was 8 to 4. We have moved generally to an 8 to 4 schedule for City Hall. And while I would continue that during the summer months, when we get back into September, I think the consensus of the staff is that the 8 to 4 is the best configuration, and may go back to the council and ask that you formally change those hours of operation for the city. And so at the same time, you could look at the scheduling of your meetings.
Mr. Mudavaren.
Mr. Mudavaren, oh, go ahead.
Mr. Palamani, proceed.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I tend to think, though, that it might be better to have the committee meetings in 209, just to have one space rather than 2. It's a larger room, and it'll give us a little bit more working space. And I think that would largely be better. As far as the 5:30 thing, I agree that the meeting should be at 5:30, and think that's something that we should look into formally changing. I do work in Albany, and I think it is an appropriate time. The little bit of feedback, and granted, it's been minimal, people seem to like the 5:30 time frame because it's earlier. They can watch it and still watch it on television and still have their evening, versus some of our meetings, which could go a little later and people have to go to work the next day. So I would like us to at least consider formally changing that time to 5:30. And I also think it's better for the staff who, look, we still need to clean things down. And if our meetings go late, it's a little bit more difficult on staff, considering that the court has 209 the next day, and they would have to have that cleaned up in time for the court operations. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colden, do we have to call for a public hearing in order to change the time to 5:30? Because in the city charter, we have 7 PM for city council meeting.
Yes, we would have to do that.
Okay. So we'll have to call for a public hearing to amend that time frame from 7 PM to 5:30 PM for city council meeting.
Mr. Moonberry, can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, please proceed.
I think when you and I were discussing this the other day, one of the things when we talked about people trying to get to the meeting by 5:30 after work, and one of the things that we discussed just in response to people that have to travel a little bit longer is that when we have our meetings, it does take several minutes at the beginning of our meetings before we get to the part where people would be coming up to the podium to speak. So I think that we might actually, if you think about that, then privilege of the floor might not actually start till about 5:40, 5:45, given some of the introductory things that we do at our meetings. So I just wanted to throw that out there as another point in terms of the start time. Thank you.
Mr. Motivaren.
Please proceed.
And the other aspect too is we can still continue the sign on to speak at the meetings online. That's while our technology hasn't worked the best, that piece seems to have worked well. And I would recommend that we continue that moving forward.
And Mr. Motivaren?
Please proceed.
Right, so I still think 5:30 is a little early, and while some people may get out at 3 if they're in education or earlier, there are some people who work to 5 o'clock. So again, I think that that we should give other options. I think 5:30 is a little early. So even if we consider other options, 6 or 6:30, I think there should be options because again, we want to do it more for really to make sure that we include residents and not just what works the best for all of us. I think that we really should take that into consideration. So as we're moving forward for the public hearing, I don't know how you would like to frame that, but I think there should be options of, how we move forward, just not either 5:30 or 7. There should be other options in between that would
Mr. Motivaren?
hopefully make a compromise for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Motivaren?
Please proceed.
So can I make a motion that we call for a public hearing so we can actually hear from our constituents on what the best time frame would be for them, and have some discussions around that? And would that be appropriate right now?
Yeah, that was my next call that asked Mr. Colden us to call for a public hearing, and then we'll have the follow-up with documents for the public hearing. If my colleagues are okay with that, we can proceed that way.
President,
Mr. Colden, is that right approach we're taking?
yes, yes, it would be, section 28-2 sets out the location and time of the council meetings. So it would be and the committee meetings for that matter. So it would be a call for a public hearing to amend section 28-2 of the city code.
Okay. So we can proceed that way this evening if there's no objection. So, the motion is on the floor. Can I have a second?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The next item, this is just a follow-up, fireworks education. Mr. Palamani.
Thank you. So if you've been following the Facebook pages of the police and fire departments, you've hopefully noticed that there's been some educational components to fireworks being put out there. I understand the mayor's office has been working on a few things. I don't know if the mayor would like to speak on that or not.
I thought Mr. Sutherland and you had talked this afternoon, which would have been the most updated information on it.
Okay. Yep, it was, I know they're working on, some videos, public service announcements, videos to be out there to educate, the public that fireworks are illegal and dangerous. And, as I said, there's more, information being pumped out from our various departments. And so look forward to that. And hopefully the, videos get out in time for the 4th of July, as I'm sure all of us have been hearing fireworks going off recently and in the neighborhoods. So there's been some movement, and hopefully we'll have some more to look forward to and be out there to hopefully quell the problem with the fireworks.
Thank you. The next item, this is also a follow-up regards to Central Parkway sidewalk petition. The last time we met, we had asked Mayor McCarthy to task Mr. Walling to come up with a program description of the sidewalk program and to come up with pricing. We'll have this on the agenda just for a courtesy of follow-up. Is there any information or any updates with regards to this, Mayor McCarthy or Mr. Walling?
I don't know if they, it takes a little bit longer, John, than 2 weeks to get, proposal and get it out for bids, to be able to actually put firm pricing. We've referenced what was done for the past sidewalk improvements as the general reference point. And of course, the actual bid numbers would probably vary a little bit, either up or down from those, depending on just what the final scope of works is.
Not a problem. just a placeholder and just a follow-up to make sure that we are, So we'll continue to just place this on the agenda, and no pressure on, but it's just a matter of making sure that the residents are aware that we are working on it. The next item is discussion spot speed camera enforcement technology. Mr. Palamani.
As we all are aware, the speeding issue in the city has become very problematic, especially since he started the pandemic, and it's maintained throughout and continues. So to try to deal with some of these issues, there are some technological options. One is a speed camera or spot speed camera. You have this in your packets. There are different versions that you can all see the photos and how they work. There's one that has your speed and tells you how fast you're going, but it also has a camera which gives you a ticket. However, in order to let me back up for a second. This has been implemented in a few cities such as New York City, Baltimore, and they've seen some significant improvements in speeding, and that's, I think, something worth looking into. However, in order for us to apply this, and we would have to get home rule from the state legislature, and even if we got that, doesn't mean we have to do it, but it would be something that I would like to see us move forward with and get the home rule. And then during this time, we could look into this deeper as a council and see if this is something that we would want to implement in the city.
So, Mr. Palamini, are we looking to move on to regards to home rules, a resolution asking the New York State Assembly?
That's my recommendation. If the rest of the council's in favor, I think that would be a good thing, and send it forward.
Open up for discussion from my colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, can I just comment on this? I appreciate the research that Mr. Palamini has done and the background on it. It is clearly an application we have to look at, but the city, in terms of the, we don't call them cameras anymore. The optical sensors that are being deployed really become integrated data sources. And so they have the potential not only to track the speed of vehicles, but the vehicle counts, the lane usage, the turns. Some of I think you've seen some of the data that's coming off Erie Boulevard, which is one of the areas where some of these were first deployed. That our potential to use these is far more advanced than some of the things that they've put in New York City or in Baltimore. And so that I would ask that the council, in terms of any request, make sure that it's more well thought out and more robust in its nature, so that it can utilize all the features that we're deploying here. And in the past, where the city has asked for things that we have not necessarily had the favorable support from the state legislature in some of these areas.
Mr. Mudavaren?
Please proceed.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. You know, certainly the cameras we have set up are on some of the major roadways. I think in some of the neighborhoods, if we could implement the cameras that we're currently using or something along these lines, doesn't really matter to me. So maybe we can work with the mayor's office and Mr. Colden to put the correct verbiage into the home rule request. But I think that's something worth moving forward with.
Any other discussion on this item?
So, Mr. Mudavaren?
Please proceed.
Okay, so is the ask that we do this tonight, or are we looking to get the other verbiage to talk about what the mayor's talking about, to have all of this information in front of us before we move forward? Because that would be the direction that I think we should go in. I wouldn't say at this point in time, this is just a discussion, so I wouldn't say at this point in time that tonight would be the night to move ahead with the home rule. I think we should have that further discussion, look at what the mayor's talking about, and then move forward with that.
In the timing on this, the reality is now that with the legislature adjourned, you wouldn't necessarily submit this until the end of December or the first part of January. So the council's not under a lot of time pressure to be able to seek the home rule.
So, Mr. Palamani, then can we hold this back and bring this back in 2 weeks and get all the information that is needed in terms of the verbiage for the resolution, and then we'll proceed then?
That's fine. I wasn't necessarily looking forward to moving tonight anyway. I just wanted to bring it forward and have the discussion on it, see if it's something that the council would like to move forward with. So we can absolutely bring this back in 2 weeks.
Okay, so we'll have this back in 2 weeks, and you know, my support with this, for this program is there, so there is no doubt about that. So what we'll do, we'll bring it back in 2 weeks, get all the information, and then we'll proceed to seek the home rules support from the New York State Assembly. Thank you. The next item is traffic signage. This is also a follow-up, and this should have been under Mr. Palamini name and not my name. So, Ms. Palamini, I think we held on to this in terms of the signage, the traffic signage. You want to update us on that in terms of the pilot program and where we are with it?
Sure. I believe Mr. Coluccio has done some background and work on this, and I see him in the technology, or well, he's online. So, Mr. Coluccio.
I have a little information for you. So I did some pricing on them, and They're in the neighborhood of $1,600 or $1,700 per sign. And, you know, I'm certainly not against doing a pilot project to get one or two intersections, outfitted to see how it works. Those intersections we choose should be based on accident history and volume of traffic, but I think that it's certainly something that we can look at and evaluate.
Thank you. So, that's basically where we're at. I think it's something worthwhile for trying. Mr. Mudavaren brought up the suggestion of a pilot project, which I think is an excellent idea. To me, I think it's worthwhile trying in a couple intersections and seeing how it works and if it's effective.
Thank you. Mayor McCarthy, is it possible for us to reallocate some funding from the Smart City or any other funding source to carry out this pilot project?
Yeah, we can work that out. Again, as Mr. Coluccio pointed out, it's identifying those intersections that you want to do the test on, so that we look at the incidence of accidents, look at traffic volume, and then come up with what the cost would be, and then be able to actually order the signage.
Do you need anything from the council in terms of approval or resolution, or this is something that you can do in-house without us?
I might be able to do it in-house without the council, but if it comes back to that, would come back to you in 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
I think
Okay,
it's also,
no problem.
I think it's also how large of a pilot are you interested in doing would be the second question.
Yes.
Well, we gotta look at funding also. I mean, and if the funding is there to do, as much as we can of the intersection that we should focus on, then we can look at that way. And Mr. Palamani, what do you think?
I'm fine with that. I think we see what the data bears out as far as the intersections go. It might be 4 or 5 that we look at, maybe only 2. So I'm fine with your suggestion, Mr. Mudavaren.
Yeah, so I think we should proceed that way. If there's no objection on the rest of the council colleagues, and work on the intersection that we need to focus on.
Mr.
And if it
Mudavaren?
has to come to the council for a resolution, we'll have it then.
Mr.
Ms.
Mudavaren?
Porterfield.
Yes, I'd just
Please
like to add
proceed.
thank you. I'd like to add the comment that we've heard from different neighborhoods about the speeding, et cetera. So, and in looking at that, I know that we have to look at traffic counts and all of that, and accidents. That's extremely important. I think we should also take a look at that. I sent information to the mayor and to the chief of police, and I believe I mentioned it at this committee meeting about a street where they've had multiple accidents where people have actually driven into other people's homes. So I know we're talking about this traffic signage, but I think even as we're looking at this and putting up a signage, stop signs at some places may be all that's simply needed. So if we could, as we're looking at traffic signage, we look at those kinds of things as well, where we could put something up as, I won't say as simple as a stop sign, because stop signs are significant and definitely slows down traffic. So if we could also look into those consideration for those areas that have already had multiple accidents, which are documented. I would really appreciate that being something that's considered as well.
Okay. So Mr. Palamini or Mr. Coluccio, that's something that we can add into, instead of focusing on the intersection, can we focus on that also?
Yeah, I mean, again, the data that we're going to request from the police department is going to give us the intersections that have the higher incidence of accidents and or volume of traffic. So, I mean, that's where we would initially start our focus, because obviously if it works at intersections with higher volumes and higher accidents, then you would, certainly want to look at adding that type of control at other locations.
Thank you. So, Mr. Palamini, should we have this back on the agenda just as a courtesy follow-up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see how we're proceeding, and we'll just have it. If there's nothing to report, there's nothing to report, but hopefully there will be. And I think it's a good movement forward by the council. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll have this back in 2 weeks just for a courtesy follow-up. Anything else before public safety? May I have a motion?
Motion to
To
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
I'd like to call the Health and Recreation Committee to order. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. For the first item, Mr. Palamani sent us all some literature about some anti-littering campaigns. Mr. Palamani, can you talk about that?
Yes, as I'm sure all of us are well aware of, there's an abundance of litter and trash in various neighborhoods. And quite frankly, where my parents' house is, I know I cut the grass and maintain the property there. And the last several times I've done the lawn, I've filled up a bag of trash. And quite frankly, as we hear from people in the neighborhoods, they're tired of it. I'm tired of it. And there needs to be some action taken. Granted, we have some street sweepers. We might not have anybody to operate them, but we have street sweepers. And but we need to take some sort of action with anti-littering campaigns. And there's been some effective campaigns put out, I should say, and you've seen that in your packet, I hope. And I think we should take some action along those lines, as well as maybe some signage in key parts of the city, basically saying, don't litter, there's a fine, put simply. But some of the ideas are annual trash offs, where I know there's certain places around the country, they actually get groups of people together, they go pick up the trash on the streets, and they give a little award to those that pick up the most. That's something we might be able to implement maybe once or twice a summer, just to try it. There's anti-littering campaigns that are educational components, so something perhaps along the lines of what we're hoping to achieve with the fireworks. Certainly, we need to work with the school district and maybe create a little curriculum jointly with the school district with the children. I know there was some efforts with, I believe it's Zoller Elementary School that was quite well attended. There's, Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, I should say, has a little game where it's litter bingo. One of the things I found interesting was there's actually a litter museum, and they recommend 3 steps: pick up litter, promote litter prevention, and reduce future litter. So I think this is a good starting point for us of creating a anti-litter campaign, and something that we could perhaps implement in Schenectady. Certainly, one of the things that we have problems with, particularly at the bus stops, and one I can think of right offhand is across from Bond Funeral Home on Broadway. There's trash galore every day, and it's picked up every day by people. And in one of these files, you'll see that they actually show with the bus stops how much litter was dropped at that bus stop since a particular day. So maybe we could also team up with CDTA, and there's ideas to work with the kids. So prizes to pick up litter. Maybe that's something we could designate a little bit of money towards a thing to get kids to pick up litter and help us. I remember doing I think many of us participated in a street cleanup, and these kids knocked over the garbage after we went and picked them up. And I said, would you please pick that up? We just cleaned there. And they proceeded to throw a bunch of F words at me. You know, I think we need to start young, as I think we all recognize, but we need to have a multi-pronged function way to attack this. So I would recommend something similar to what we're trying to do with the fireworks on the website, some videos, working with the school district, and perhaps CDTA.
Comments from my colleagues?
Ms. Patrick?
Yes, Ms. Porterfield.
That was not me,
It's me.
but I do have something to say next.
Sorry. Okay, Mrs. CW.
Thank you. So, Ms. Patrick and I did participate in the Zoller cleanup day, and I think you're absolutely correct. We need to start with the schools. I mean, I remember when I was in school, we had anti-litter programming, and it's grassroots, and I think we need to make sure that that we support it any way we can. So I would fully be in support of this. You are correct. There's trash everywhere, every neighborhood. And if everyone just, you know, when I walk the park, I take an extra bag and try to pick up trash along the way. And the park's pretty clean because I think the staff does a great job. But at the end of the day, we still have trash everywhere. So, and I do want to comment, you had one item in there that had the recyclable cigarette butts. We do have those in the bid area downtown, which I think have been working very well. And I think people are using them, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be another thing that, you know, we should look at as we start to expand business improvement districts throughout the city. So thank you, Mr. Palamani.
Ms. Porterfield?
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. So I agree that we definitely need to do something. You know, it's been discussed for a long time about the litter. I just would add that we would want to probably include the neighborhood associations. As you may recall, in 2019, there were 4 neighborhoods who worked on anti-littering in their neighborhoods by putting out garbage cans, by actually doing an educational piece in the school with the students. So this effort has already started. You know, COVID shut a lot of things down. So I just want to make sure that as we're doing this, we're working with places that we've already started, including people that have already been doing some of the work. Mr. Palamani did mention about the bus stops, and I wholeheartedly agree. And in Hamilton Hill, with our anti-littering project, it's called Show Love Where You Live. And so one of the things that we did was to actually put trash cans at the bus stops. And it actually works. People actually really put it in there. Some don't, not everyone, but you do see the difference because the trash cans get full. So I think strategically that is one of the things that you would want to do. But also, like I said, the neighborhoods like Banna, the North Side, Hamilton Hill, and there was one other neighborhood, I think it was a Stockade, had done some anti-littering work. And I think that as we move forward, it would be probably a lot easier lift if we were to include the neighborhoods as well as every other group that would want to be involved in that. So I just think that as we move forward, those are things to be considered. Thank you.
I think so too. I think it's Goose Hill actually was the other neighborhood that did that. And I think in all those cases, as you and Ms. Zalewski-Welzunas and Mr. Palamani talked about, I think it's a great opportunity, not just for us to be working with the children in the schools, but also a lot of this has been volunteer driven. And that's super. I mean, that's really always, I think all of us, you know, feel strongly that the volunteers that help us out in the city and in the county really are, you know, just so valuable to everything that we get done. And, you know, when I think about the neighborhood associations, I think about the civic groups like Rotary. You know, our Schenectady Rotary does Vale Park twice a year. I really think that we'd be able to figure this out as sort of a master plan of recruiting. MVP is always sending volunteers to do these kinds of activities. So I think in terms of funding for some of the ideas that Mr. Palamani included in that we saw in the packet, I bet we'd be able to get, donations of some of the things that we might want to do for prizes or for the kids. And, perhaps back to that neighborhood challenge, where I think a lot of the garbage can money came from, hopefully we'd be able to get some funding support from some of our corporate partners and the foundation. So what would, Mr. Palamani, how do you want to move forward as a next step?
I think maybe we, if it's okay with the mayor, we work with the mayor and his staff to see if we can reach out to some of the neighborhood groups and work with them, as well as some of the components that we as a city can do. I will say the garbage cans in some neighborhoods, it became, as we walked around the city, sadly a running joke. There was garbage next to the garbage can, on top of the garbage can, all around the garbage can, but not in the garbage can. Maybe some signage as well. But maybe I think bring it back in 2 weeks as an update and work with the mayor and his staff if it's approved by him to see if we can start putting this together and work with the council to get this done.
Okay, sounds good. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, thanks for all the input there. We'll make sure that it goes back onto the agenda in a couple of weeks. So the next item is the Central Park fountain renovations. And again, Mr. Palamani, did you fill us in on this?
Thank you. The Central Park fountain has, I don't know for how long, but hasn't been working. And I was wondering if we might be able to get some sort of information as to what it would cost to get this fixed so it's working properly, painted, and maybe some LED lighting so it looks nice. Because I do know a number of people have been asking about the fountain and whether or not it will get operational again at some point. So I would like to see if we could get information on the cost of fixing the fountain.
Yes, I don't think Paul LaFont is on the call at this point, but he was starting to review that and the painting, and when we paint it, we lower the level of the water in the lake a little bit. And again, if you're going to do repairs, it makes it easier at that point. But we'll get that together.
Thank you. Ms. Patrick, you're muted.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd say
Sorry about that.
In fact, I'm being told the fountain was painted last week, so that some of that has been, we're working on it.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was on mute, so I will say that what I was saying was, Ms. Porterfield, could you speak to the next item on our agenda, which is about supporting the Senate and Assembly bills regarding cricket?
Absolutely, thank you. So just on the background, as we know, we've had a request to do a lease for Growl Park for cricket grounds. So that's still in discussion. However, as we're looking at this, we've been looking at cricket overall in the state of New York. And so there was a bill passed by the Senate and the Assembly that relates to including the promotion expansion of cricket in the state of New York to the jurisdiction of the State Athletic Commission. So what I was looking for at this point for us to simply do a resolution in support of that, to just as a starting point of, or including what we're doing as we work towards creating cricket grounds in Schenectady. What I did include for you is a copy, in your package you will find a copy of the actual bill. It's the same bill for the Senate and the Assembly. And I will say that our Assemblyman, Santa Barbara, is a co-sponsor of the bill in the Assembly. And I also included an article regarding about the expansion of cricket. So I'm just asking from the council to just do a resolution of support for those bills.
Okay, discussion? So we'd have this, in other words, you'd present a resolution next week, or?
No. We would just go to the, we would just send it forward. We wouldn't have anybody come on. We would just
Okay,
do the
I gotcha.
resolution.
It's just,
Gotcha.
are these bills going to be reintroduced next year? As the legislature has ended. So,
Well, they're when on the senator's website, they're still looking for support there. So I would like us to be able to do the resolution support, because it's still on. Senator Thomas, who's the one in the Senate, is still asking for support.
Okay, any other comments from other counselors about this?
I move this.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll do that, Ms. Porterfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to call to order government operations. There's one item on the agenda, a discussion calling for a public hearing to amend Chapter 8711 of the Code of the City of New York, of Schenectady. This is Mr. Mudavarian and myself. So Chapter 87-11 is regarding holidays in the City of Schenectady. As we know, June, President Biden signed legislation that makes June 19th, Juneteenth, a national holiday, and that was signed on June 18th of this year. And so we'd like to just have some discussion about amending our code to include that as a holiday that's recognized in the city. Mr. Mudavarian?
No,
Is
I
there something you
think
wanna
you
add to
capture it there. I think you capture it there. And that's basically, I have a brief conversation with Mr. Holding, and that's what we need to do. To call for public hearing to amend this Chapter 87-11 to accommodate for this national holiday.
well, can
Well, I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I did notice that the City Hall was closed this June 18th, just before the Juneteenth holiday. So I did notice that, so I'm not sure where the city is with that. So, so please go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Well, our holidays are both in the code, but also delineated in our collective bargaining agreements. A large number of those agreements are up for negotiation, and I have signed rules of those negotiations where I won't make public comments. But it might be a fair thing to assume that some of these items or this particular item might be a topic of discussion, so that I would ask that maybe there's not a sense of urgency in this, that the council give me a little bit of time where we may be able to resolve that within the terms of the collective bargaining agreements, and not do it in a manner that deviates from our accepted practice of putting these in place.
Mayor, then can I ask you then? So since this is in our code, and I understand what it is that you're saying about the collective bargaining, don't we still have to change the code as well? Would we still not have to do that?
Yes and no. It's the code at this point becomes more symbolic. The contracts become the practical application of the terms and conditions of employment, and those are, in this case, another day off.
So I guess I need to ask Mr. Colden for clarity, because based on what Mr. Mudavarian says, that is why we're bringing it before the council, because Mr. Colden says that this is something that was necessary. So if we could just get some clarity around that, that would be helpful. Mr. Colden, are you here?
I'm here, Ms. Porterfield.
Thank you.
This is one of those situations where both Council President Mudavarran is absolutely correct, and so is the mayor. We obviously there are management employees of the city who don't fall within any collective bargaining agreement, and we fall within what the city code says with regard to holidays. At the same time, we have quite a few unions that are subject to collective bargaining agreements. And the days off and those days that are delineated as holidays are subject to collective bargaining. Obviously we've just passed the Juneteenth holiday. As the mayor indicated, we are negotiating with just about, I don't want to say all the unions, but many of the unions right now for new collective bargaining agreements, being that Juneteenth is not now for another 363 days. I think it would serve the city well to move forward with the negotiations for the collective bargaining agreements, which obviously, as you know, Ms. Porterfield, is subject to city council approval. And then on the back end of that, if in fact through negotiations we add Juneteenth as a holiday under the CBA, the city council then should, I would recommend, move forward with a change in the city code.
Thank you for clarifying that. So at this point in time, then, what I'm understanding and hearing is that we don't need to call for a public hearing on this. We need to wait as the mayor moves forward with discussing with the bargaining units. And so what would you, Mr. Mayor, your time frame for us bringing this back after those discussions, where we'd then bring this to talk about the city code? What would our time frame be, so we could just think about putting it on the calendar?
I think we're fairly close in a number of these contracts, even though the reality is it's probably 60 days out, and as we get into the summer, it might be a little bit more to go back and forth to come back with agreements so they'd be able to present to the council. But hopefully, clearly by Labor Day, could package everything up and again, resolve all these issues.
Right. And I guess one more question that was never really asked. And so is the intent to include Juneteenth as one of those holidays in the bargaining unit discussions?
Again, I've signed an agreement where I won't comment on it.
Oh, okay.
The council's always told me to get the best deal for the city. And so when they want a day off, I understand the symbolism and other thing, but I want to try and balance that with the overall cost to the city for that benefit package.
Okay. Because we have, go ahead.
You'll be happy with the final resolution that I would present to the council.
We'll be happy with it?
You'll be happy with it. But
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you the details tonight.
Oh, okay.
I assume you're happy with everything I present to the council.
Of course. So I just just want to, as we schedule for meetings next year, we want to, take all of that into consideration. So
Yep.
that's
Well,
where we are at this point.
Mayor, I look to resolve it this year. It's not going to be next year. We'll get it wrapped up here by the end of the summer or early September.
Right. No, what I'm saying is that we have it in time so that when we schedule our meetings for next year, we will know.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor. And I will, Mr. Mudavarran and I can both follow up with you regarding that in your we'll start in 45 days and then we can take it from there. So we will not be calling for a public hearing on this at this point in time. Mr. Mudavarran, did you want to add anything, or do you feel that's a resolution to this?
No, I'm okay with that. We can wait a while and then bring this back for updates and possible moving forward. We're calling for a public hearing at that point in time.
All right, thank you. So at this point, if there's no other business for government operations, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Look, second.
All those in
Second.
favor? All those in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Ms. Zaluski-Wazunas, this is your committee.
Uh, Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Are we doing claims
Public
first?
service. No, public service
No.
and utility.
Okay. I'm sorry. We'll bring public service and utilities to order. We have one item on the agenda. It's the sewer agreement between the town of Rotterdam. Is Mr. LaFond on, or is Mr. Colton taking this?
Mr. LaFond is telling me he's on. I'm not sure people can hear him. And what this is we're taking the old agreement and moving forward, where basically we are modifying the rate structure to reflect inflation and some of our costs that we incur. We've gone back and forth with this, the town of Rotterdam. At this point, I'm looking to ask for the council's support and allow us to enter into this agreement.
Okay, are there any questions?
And the only other thing, Madam Chair, I would point out is I'm looking to use this as a model agreement for Town of Glenville, Village of Scotia, some of that for Niskiuna, that those are also open agreements, and we would look to again come back to formalize those under this guideline and this rate structure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any other questions of the mayor?
I'll move it.
And I apologize, Madam Chair. If anybody has any technical questions or follow-up, feel free to just call Paul LaFond tomorrow or the next day, and he'll be more than happy to give you whatever details you need.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the motion. Can I have a
I'll
second?
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anything else to come before public service and utilities?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order City Development and Planning. There are 16 items on the agenda. 8 of them are in executive session. So we will first start with item number 1, amending chapter 183 of the code related to the business certificate of use. Public hearing was on 6/14. Mr. Colden.
Thank you, Ms. Porterfield. Ms. Porterfield, as far as I know, there weren't any public comments. I know nobody spoke at the public hearing. I think perhaps this is a question for the city clerk to answer whether any public comments were subsequently submitted after the date of the public hearing. I think that would be probably the most prudent track. But if there weren't, I would suggest we move ahead with the changes as provided previously to the city council, and those changes that were provided for public review and comment.
Ms. Michael, were there any other comments submitted?
No, Ms. Porterfield, there were no comments submitted at all for this particular item.
Thank you very much. So I would entertain a motion to amend the chapter 183.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is a reminder accepting ownership of Barrett Village Lane. The public hearing will be on 6/28. So it's just a reminder there, letting people know that there's going to be that public hearing. Item number 3, contract with the University of Albany for Technology and Government. Mr. Coluccio?
Thank you. So we're moving to our next phase of our municipal restructuring grant for code enforcement, which we received in 2017 from the Department of State. Or excuse me, where the Center for Technology and Government has worked with us since the beginning, and we're looking to have them as a partner on the next phase of this grant to facilitate adding additional cities to our code platform. So today we're requesting legislation to allow us to enter into a contract with the University of Albany Center for Technology and Government as the current contract dates have expired. Anybody
Are there
have
any-
any questions?
Are there any questions? So, Mr. Coluccio, just to be clear, this entering to this contract, there's no cost to the city?
Correct. This is a fully municipal restructuring grant that we received back in 2017 was for $572,000. And it's allocated based on the phases that we've completed. So we're up to another phase where we're going to get a 200 and some odd, 240, I don't have the number in front of me, 200 some odd $1,000. And a portion of this is going to the Center for Technology and Government. So it's a reimbursable. We put the money out and then the Department of State reimburses us.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions?
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4, award bid and contract for the Broadway pavement preservation from 4th Street to Weaver Street. So Callahan Industries, Mr. Wallen.
Good evening. This is the award bid and contract for a federal aid project that the city received for pavement preservation. The project is for the milling and paving of Broadway between essentially I-890 Crane Street up the hill to 4th Street, Fairview Avenue. The project will include signal upgrades, crosswalk upgrades, and select sidewalk replacement where we have poor sidewalk. However, it will not be a complete sidewalk project, only where we have extremely poor sidewalk areas. The project's been going on for over a year with design. It's through all the DOT requirements. We are waiting for concurrence from the DOT, but I expect to have concurrence this week, so I did not want to delay the award as it's already June. So that is the project in a nutshell. We've done similar projects on Broadway, Lower Broadway, and Guilderland from the funeral home up. This is a similar project to that. The bid has been reviewed and we have no exceptions.
Are there any questions?
Ms. Porterfield?
Mr. Palamani?
Mr. Wallen, just a quick question. I think I know the answer, but just to make sure, there's a cutout in front of basically where the Dunkin' Donuts area is on Broadway Hill. Is that going to be addressed in this pavement preservation?
Yeah, we're actually working with National Grid to try to address that, but if they can't, then we'll be doing it and working out some kind of a bill with them because it's begun to sink. But if they can't get out there, yeah, we're going to have to, similar to the rest of it, because we're going to be paving over everything and we don't want to have a dip in the pavement.
Not to give you a hard time because it's not your fault. It's been more than recent that's been a sinkhole. That's gotten worse and worse, and it's become a major problem. So I'm glad that's being addressed, as is the whole street. I know there's been a number of complaints from people in Bellevue on the conditions of this stretch. So it's thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Wong. I look forward to seeing it get completed.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great project. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And item number 5, again, Mr. Wallen, award bid and contract for the Girling and Lancaster drainage improvements to Carver Construction Incorporated. Mr. Wallen.
Yes, this project is a long time coming project if you were to talk with residents in the area. This area has a high water table and it is on a steep grade. We have an annual issue in the spring of water in the road and in the winter of ice. Our OGS crew routinely removes a large dump truck size of ice every month from the area. So this project is to install subsurface drainage, catch basins, and a trunk line from the intersection down Gurling, then down Wyoming Lancaster to our existing main line by the Sheridan Plaza. We're also going to pave the road when we're done with it. And we got 2 bids. The low was Carver. We thought it was a good number. We had our assistant engineer review it with our engineer, contracted engineer, and they had no issues with it. We've talked with them, and Carver is looking forward to working on the project.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Ms. Porterfield?
Mr. Palamani?
Yep, thank you. Again, Mr. Wallen, thank you very much. This project is much needed. Many complaints from the residents in this area for numerous years. As you said, the ice buildup, particularly down near Sheridan Village. Lancaster is like bombs hit it. So once it's repaved, it'll be excellent. And hopefully this will address the complaints that residents have of the water and ice going from the hill down into their residence on Lancaster there. So again, thank you for bringing this forward. It's a much needed project and can't wait to see it completed.
Great.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
No,
If
I'd
not-
like to move it. I'd like to move this forward. And Mr. Wallen, thank you very much because this is long overdue. And I know the residents down there will be extremely excited about this project. So thank you.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
All
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Wallen, for both of those. The next item on the agenda is ceremony, item number 6, ceremonial resolution for the 25th anniversary of Cocoa House. Ms. Patrick.
Yes, I just would like to propose to council that we do a formal resolution supporting the 25th anniversary of Cocoa House, which provides a great deal of support for youth in Hamilton Hill through its after-school programming and its mentoring. So we bring forth that resolution next week if this passes.
Okay. And any other questions or comments? I would say that I agree with you, Ms. Patrick. Cocoa House has been, I remember its inception and the family that started it. So I'm glad to see that even though they're not in the area anymore, the Grahams, that this is still going on. So that's good to see. So that they've made their 25th anniversary. So I certainly think it's worthwhile and certainly should be recognized for the work that they do with the youth, and also for Union College for them supporting throughout Cocoa House the students that come there and help out. So it's great.
right.
It's a great
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And I will happily second that. Mr. Rivas does a phenomenal job. So very supportive.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And item number 7, revocable license agreement with 430 Franklin LLC for 430 Franklin Street ramp. Mr. Colden.
Thank you. If there are any technical questions about this, if Mr. Wallen's still on, obviously he'd be the person to speak with on that. The Benjamin Building is located at the corner of Franklin Street and J Street. It's been undergoing significant rehabilitation over the past several months. The property owner, 430 Franklin LLC, has proposed to construct a ramp for access on the J Street side. As part of that, they would need a license from the city to use part of the city's right-of-way on J Street to construct the ramp. The city now seeks authorization from the city council to enter into a long-term revocable license agreement with the property owner. Certain terms of the proposed agreement include the following. It's a 50-year term with the ability, to be renewed upon written agreement. The agreement may be terminated by either party upon notice. However, upon the end of the agreement's term or termination of the agreement, the property owner is required to restore the area for which the license was granted to the condition of the area as it had been at the time of the agreement's execution, unless the city and the licensee agrees in writing to keep it as is. In addition, the property owner must indemnify the city and hold adequate insurance, naming the city as an additional insured. Obviously, this is a long-term agreement with the city and the licensee having the ability to terminate for cause. That being said, the agreement will allow and will promote economic development at the location. Obviously, that location's been, I think, an eyesore for a number of years. The city is protected by the indemnification provision and the insurance requirements. So the bottom line, the city is seeking authorization from the council to allow the mayor to enter into this revocable license agreement with the property owner, 430 Franklin LLC. Thank you.
I do have one question, Mr. Colden. You said that it goes into the city right away. So are we, how much into it? I guess my basic question, it's not inhibiting any pedestrian traffic there where this is being built?
It should not inhibit any pedestrian traffic. Obviously, Mrs. Porterfield, it does go into the right of way, but there's the proposal, and if Mr. Wallen's on, or perhaps Mayor McCarthy can provide additional detail on this. It's not going to inhibit traffic on the walkway. There will be proposed relocation. I think there's a board, like a message board, was being proposed that would be moved to another location at the right of way, or at the walkway rather. I think perhaps with enhanced technology to kind of advance the ability for people to see what's going on. In addition, as the member of the LLCs on the call too, a big part of this, Ms. Porterfield, and obviously the other council members, this will allow ADA compliance so that people can access the building. That's why is a ramp that's being proposed as opposed to obviously steps or something else.
Okay, thank you.
I think in your packet, Councilmember, there's a rendering of it, so it's almost unnoticeable, but as Mr. Colden just pointed out, it's to make the ramp ADA compliant. So it's going to be done in an attractive and complementary manner to the existing walkway.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, if the rendering is not up on the screen for those who are viewing or listening to see, so I just wanted to make sure that that information was out there. So thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Okay.
I need to abstain.
Okay, so I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So the final 8 items are in executive session. So I would like to ask for a recess of city development and planning so claims can be called to order. And then we will reopen city development and planning in executive session. So at this moment in time, I'd like to ask for a recess of city development and planning.
And Madam Chair, before you go into executive session, just there's a front of potential thunderstorms, high winds that are probably going to hit Schenectady in about an hour. So again, would just encourage people to be cautious, be careful, and just be aware of that. And hope everybody will have a safe evening.
Thank you, Mayor. So a motion to recess city development and
Motion to
planning.
recess. Motion to
Second.
recess.
All those in favor?
Second.
Ah.
Aye.
We're
I
recessed.
wanna
Thank
open
you.
up claims. I'd like to open up claims and go into executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
That committee would be Ms. Patrick and Ms. Porterfield.
So Ms. Patrick, you're on mute.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's see on the other side.